What's going on, gardeners? On today's 2-minute garden tip, I'm going to share with you a homemade tool that will make starting seed and transplants in your garden a breeze. Whether you're planting directly from seed or you're planting transplants out in your garden, the one thing you want to make sure that you always nail is spacing of your plants. You need to make sure that all of your plants have enough space that they can grow big and strong without competition, but you also don't want to give them so much space that you're wasting precious surface area in your garden beds. When it comes to spacing the rows in my raised bed garden, the way I always did this was I would take a permanent marker and mark slashes at 1 foot on all of my raised beds, and this would make life easier when it came to planting the rows, but it never helped me with the individual spacing of the plants within the rows themselves. So what I would always do is I would break out my tape measure and I would just pull it across the rows and I would get my spacing that way, but that was a big pain because it was really dirty and I would always get dirt that would get rolled up into the tape measure, and over time the tape measures would seize up from all of the sand that would accumulate inside, and I thought there had to be a better way. If you go to your local big box store like a Lowe's or a Home Depot, in the lumber section they sell these things called furring strips for only a couple bucks a piece. They're 8-foot long pieces of wood. They make great tomato stakes, and they also have plenty of other uses around the garden. So I decided to take one of the old furring strips I was using as a tomato stake and make a homemade tool to make transplanting things out in my garden way easier. So what I did was I took a furring strip and I cut it to 4 feet in length because that is the width of all of my raised beds. Then I put hash marks on this tool, and the full-size hash marks are 1-foot hash marks, whereas the smaller half hash marks are 6-inch hash marks. So now I can easily tell my spacing because I have a 6-inch mark, a 1-foot mark, an 18-inch mark, a 2-foot mark, etc., etc., and it has made my life so much easier. So when it came time to transplant these lettuce plants you see in this bed right here, all I did was I took my transplant tool and I laid it down across the row, and now I have exactly 6-inch spacing for these smaller heads of lettuce. And as you can see, they are all spaced out perfectly at the 6-inch mark, except for this one right here, because we had a casualty in a 23-degree freeze overnight after a really dry period, unfortunately. And then when it comes time to plant a new row, you simply pick it up and then you move it to the new row, and you'll have spacing for that as well, and it couldn't be easier. If you want to go out and make your own tool like this, I think furring strips are probably the cheapest, lightest option, but if you have something lying around the house that fits the bill, feel free to use that as well. It's not mandatory to use this piece of wood. Simple little homemade tools like this can save us a ton of time in the garden. And that's today's 2-minute garden tip. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.